Situated at the intersection of tourism, migration, and human animal studies, this multi-species ethnographic study focuses on the relationships between residents, visitors, and a colony of free-living cats, Felis catus, inhabiting a popular sun and sea-style vacation destination on the Costa del Sol, Spain. My research focuses on cats living along a 1.6 stretch of the Torremolinos promenade. So starting just to the left of this image, where there are restaurants and bars, continuing around the bend and these cliffs here that provide shelter for the cats, and ending on the other side where there are more seafront bars and restaurants. So tourism in this region is built around the classic sun and sea style budget holidays, and has a culture of British migrants, sometimes referred to as residential tourists, who live there seasonally or more permanently. My research is informed by Professor Karen O'Reilly's ethnographic account of Brits living on the Costa del Sol and the concept of transnational community building. I also draw upon the concept of interspecies intersubjectivity and transspecies co-creation of culture. I adopt the term humano-cat cultures, coined by Dr. Philip Yaros, to describe the relationship between companion cats and humans. So the Torremolinos Promenade colony currently represents a successful trap-neuter release program. And although there will always be new stray or abandoned cats, I last visited during kitten season, and there were no kittens to be seen. The colony is overseen by Filina Malaga, who help with medical care, and there are volunteers with a license from the council to feed these cats. So emergent themes from preliminary fieldwork and an analysis of TripAdvisor comments are now published in a chapter of the book Emergent Voices for Animals in Tourism. So focusing on establishments along the promenade, almost 100 English reviews mention the cats, which comprise 2% of the total English language reviews. And this is an important point because it suggests that most visitors are actually indifferent to the cats, to the point of not even commenting on them. So those coded as neutral were often ambiguous, and it was not always clear if the observation was intended to be positive or negative, or in most cases seemed to be merely a side note. So the abundance of cats is something evident in how they are referenced in the context of complaints about food. For example, writing, "Even the cats wouldn't eat it," or to complain about the lack of hospitality, such as, "The cats are treated better than the guests." More complaints about cats appeared in the hotel reviews, and negative comments tended to cite the noise and untidiness of multiple cats. There was also the perception of cats as being dirty or unsightly. And I engaged with the concept of tourist entitlement and anthropocentric attitudes in the published study. And many comments expressed joy regarding the cat's presence, something that is corroborated by my fieldwork observations. During my fieldwork, notes and video footage are used to capture and record the daily habits and behaviours of unknown cats living along the Torremolinos promenade. I went out at various times of the day, walking, sitting, and eating like a regular tourist. And I certainly wasn't conspicuous or out of place taking photographs of cats. Even without trying, I have several photos, like this one shown here, of people taking photos or videos of the cats. Several organic conversations about the cats arose from people acknowledging my cat admiring activities with comments such as, "Oh, you love cats too, me too," which often was followed up by them sharing how they miss their cat back home. Although I did not conduct formal interviews, neither did I conceal my identity as a researcher during these impromptu conversations. And while it was not my intention to recruit human informants during this trip, I did befriend two official feeders, a British-born woman and her Spanish friend, on the second day. So I took care not to approach or force my attention on any of the cats, and interactions were feline initiated. So I do not share any potentially identifying imagery of humans, although I do share some photos of the cats. And feline privacy is something I am conscious of and continue to grapple with. Images and videos of many of my feline informants can be found online. However, as researchers, I do feel we have a responsibility to both protect and respect the dignity of our more than human participants. Um, and you can read some of my thoughts on this blog I wrote during my PhD, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. Data included over 500 photos and 1,100 video clips, ranging in length from 1 to 125 seconds, with a median length of 11 seconds, totaling around 280 minutes of footage of 51 cats. So cats seen on less than 3 outings are indicated as light green paws on this map on the left. Those seen between 4 and 10 outings in brown, and those encountered on more than 10 outings are shown as black paws. So the majority of data surrounds 25 cats who are documented almost every single day, often on multiple outings. So the cats hang out in the same general areas, which are indicated on the map here, often seen together as bonded pairs or in the same small groups. And this is something I've previously observed and has been documented by others studying colony behaviour. So 8 of the cats I recognised from fieldwork in 2022, and many are also identifiable online in various traveller blogs and YouTube videos. So this little black cat can be seen most days on this same rock, and my human informant says she's been there at least 4 years. And this cat I dubbed Fisherman Friend can often be seen sat next to a fisherman or indeed snuggled up next to a tourist. Here she is with me in 2022, and the ginger cat sat on the rocks in the first slide has also been around for several years too, pictured with me here in 2022. So future research will be to interview the feeders and locals and get full biographies of some of these cats. However, today I will share findings from my preliminary thematic analysis of observations and interactions with these free-living cats based on my most recent fieldwork. Although I don't have time to discuss all of them today, several themes emerge that I am following up on. Probably the most notable is how many tourists openly expressed joy at seeing these cats. I overheard several variations of the explanation, "Oh, look, another kitty." I watched a grown man practically skip across the walkway to look at a group of cats sat in the shade under the bushes. And indeed, I observed people of all ages, genders, and various nationalities doting over the cats, taking photographs of them or filming them, petting them, sometimes asking for consent or at least being mindful of the cat's reaction. Other times, not so much. Some would even pick up the cats, and the cats tolerated this for the most part. Although some individuals were more adept at manoeuvring out of the reach of overly grabby humans. And around feeding time, a crowd inevitably gathers. So as noted previously from the TripAdvisor analysis, there do exist negative attitudes towards the cats. However, apart from one lady I saw hissing and stamping her foot at a passing cat, I did not witness maliciousness directed towards any of the cats. And then one evening I was sat on a step with a cat curled up next to me when a family group came along and stepped around me after acknowledging the cat's presence. And one of the men in the group turned to me and said, "I know, love, I'm an animal lover too." And this appears to be the overriding sentiment, that many visitors are pro-cat. And a common theme is that holidaymakers are reminded of their own cats back home whom they missed. And there have been several studies published on tourist attitudes towards street cats and dogs and perceptions of welfare. And I'm currently in the process of contrasting my analysis to these to look for commonalities and distinctions related to different cultural contexts, animal welfare provisions, and the touristic landscapes. On the first day of my latest field trip, a little black cat jumped to my lap and snuggled down. She has a snipped ear, indicative of a cat who has been trapped, neutered, and released. And every day I encountered her in the same general area, shown here watching the world go by. But often I'd see her sat in someone's lap. And I experienced this level of human friendliness from several of the cats here. And this is likely related to the fact that both locals and visitors feed the cats, sometimes cat treats, other times leftovers from their plate. And also combined with these cats not having experienced abuse at the hands of humans. Also, the current population is largely comprised of stray or abandoned former companion cats who would have been socialized as kittens. And I hypothesize that any kittens born there would also be socialized by regular interactions with colony caretakers and visitors, which is something I would like to follow up on as part of an ongoing ethnographic study. Although hopefully the community will continue to stay on top of ensuring new colony members are neutered and the number of colony-born kittens kept to a minimum. Anyway, the phrase, "they are wildcats," was as prominent as hearing people say, "oh, they're homeless." And neither is really true. And it irks my informant to hear them referred to as wildcats, and she will correct people by explaining that they are pet cats. Now, this too can be confusing, as it leads to the misunderstanding that they have homes to go back to, or they have human homes to go back to. And a couple do, but most of the cats live in the caves and bushes along the promenade. However, most are stray or abandoned pets, or at least highly socialized to humans. And this makes them distinct from street-born cats and cats born in more rural locations. So, as I mentioned, I would hear expressions of sadness that these cats have no home. And my immediate thoughts are that this is their home, and they are loved by those who feed them and visit them every day. I also had several versions along the lines of, they just have the best life, don't they? But do they have the best life, or at least a good life? And I'm not going to answer that question today, but I do want to point out that it is easy to adopt a romantic view of these cats. However, they do get sick from being fed inappropriate foods, and my informant said several have been injured in the last year or so by cyclists and scooters riding too fast around the bend. Medical provision for sick or injured cats is not as readily available as it might be for a pampered companion cat, but it is there. And importantly, there are multiple senior cats. And I'm actually not sure how old this one I dubbed Fisherman's Friend is, shown in the corner here. And although she did not appear overly distressed and is eating, her coat looks in poor condition. And thinking about her invokes conflicting emotions in me that I've not fully processed. And there are a couple of cats who looked visibly unwell. And upon request of a colony caretaker, I actually captured footage of a particular cat that they wanted to share with the vet. And then there was another cat who is on a vet recommended liquid diet, and I overheard more than one comment about her skinniness. And yes, she is too thin, and that is a concern. However, it also concerns me that her condition and that of senior cats gives the impression that all the cats live poorly. And it also says a lot about how old or sick animals in general are viewed. So naturally, people don't like seeing frail or sickly animals. But does that give us a right to pity them, hide them away, or even euthanize them? Of course, there will be strong opinions and caveats regarding levels of suffering, but my analysis is honing in on this notion of aging colony cats. And that really is the status of my research at the moment, that I'm reflecting upon some of these emerging themes and teasing out various threads before I make any solid conclusions from my analysis. But to summarize, the humano-cat culture of Torremolinos is one of feline sociality, human friendliness, and predominantly positive engagement with pro-cat locals and visitors. Many of the cats express affiliative behaviours towards tourists and initiate contact with strangers. Others are more timid and will hide from tourists but come to the feeders. Several will tolerate closeness but move away from humans trying to pet them. The colony is comprised of adult cats, many of whom have been there for many years. And aside from squabbles during feeding time, the cats mostly get along and have established micro-territories and favourite spots, and several appear to be bonded pairs. The cats and humans are also part of a larger multi-species community, including the pigeons who live alongside the cats, eat their food, and occasionally come into conflict with the cats and their feeders. Future research plans include quantitative surveys and qualitative interviews with visitors, residents, cat caretakers and veterinarians, business owners, and local authorities, as well as feline personality and behavioural studies. The research will contribute to tourism, migration, and human animal studies by examining how attitudes and relations between local cats, Spanish born residents, and British expats relates to tourist entitlement, classism, and anthropocentrism. Furthermore, it seeks to build upon Karen O'Reilly's seminal work on transnational identity and community building among British expats in Spain, and to develop the idea of trans-species community building. In many respects, I see parallels between the liminal status of resident Brits and free-living cats. So the Brits in Spain have been the subject of a lot of bad press. And while this is not entirely unwarranted, there is an underlying classism, at least in how the British press frame a predominantly working class demographic. Likewise, there exists a stigma around free-living cats as pests, carriers of disease, and perpetrators of ecological collapse. However, in both cases, the reality is always more complex and nuanced. So I believe we have a few minutes for questions. However, if you don't get a chance to ask now, please do reach out to me with any questions, suggestions, or if you just want to talk about cats. And you can visit my website to learn more about my research and collaborative projects. Thank you.